Motivation, when you no longer want to do anything. Ladies and gentlemen, before we talk about motivation, before we talk about goals, discipline, or success, I want to talk about something much quieter. I want to talk about that moment in your life when nobody is watching. Not the moment when you are applauded, not the moment when you are praised, but the moment when you are alone with your thoughts. The moment when the noise of the world fades and you are left with a question that scares you. Why should I keep going? This question doesn't come from laziness. It doesn't come from weakness. It comes from exhaustion, from trying again and again, from believing, failing, recovering, and believing again, from carrying responsibilities no one sees, from being strong for too long without rest. Some of you here today are not looking for motivation to succeed. You are looking for motivation to exist, to get through the day, to stand up one more time. And if that is you, I want you to know something very important. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need to be more positive. You don't need to pretend everything is okay. You need understanding. You need permission to slow down. You need a reminder that your life still matters, even when you feel empty. This talk is not about becoming unstoppable. It is not about working harder. It is not about chasing success at all costs. This talk is about staying. Staying when quitting feels easier. Staying when motivation is gone. Staying when the future feels unclear. Because sometimes the most courageous thing a human being can do is not to win, but to remain. So if you feel tired, if you feel lost, if you feel like you no longer want to do anything, you are in the right place. Let's talk. Chapter 1, The Lie We Were Told About Motivation. Long introduction. Before we talk about motivation, we need to unlearn something. From a very young age, we are taught that motivation is a feeling, a spark, a burst of energy that magically appears and pushes us forward. We are shown images of people waking up early, smiling, winning, achieving. We are told, if you really want it, you'll feel motivated. And when that feeling disappears, we assume something is wrong with us. But what if motivation was never supposed to be constant? What if the problem isn't that you lost motivation, but that you believed it was supposed to stay forever? Citation, open quote, "Motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going." Jim Ryan, close quote, anecdote. A marathon runner once said the hardest part of running wasn't the pain, wasn't the distance, wasn't the exhaustion. It was tying his shoes. Not because running was impossible, but because starting required energy he didn't have yet. Motivation came after movement. Chapter 2, When Doing Nothing Feels Like the Only Option. Long introduction. There are days when doing nothing doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like the only option left. Not because you don't care, but because caring has become exhausting. You sit still, not out of laziness, but out of emotional fatigue. And the silence inside your mind is louder than any noise around you. This is the part of the journey few people talk about. The moment when ambition feels meaningless and even simple tasks feel heavy. Citation, open quote, "There are wounds that never show on the body that are deeper than anything that bleeds." Laurel K. Hamilton, close quote. Anecdote, I once heard about a man who kept telling everyone he was fine. He had a job, responsibilities, a routine. But one day, he sat on his bed and couldn't stand up. Not because his legs failed, but because his spirit was exhausted. Nothing dramatic happened. He was simply tired of being strong. Chapter 3, Motivation does not come first, action does. Long introduction. We often wait. We wait to feel ready. We wait to feel confident. We wait to feel inspired. But waiting for motivation is like waiting for the sun to rise at midnight. Movement creates clarity. Action creates energy. Not big actions, small, imperfect ones. When motivation disappears, action becomes an act of courage. Citation, open quote, "You don't have to feel motivated to get started. You have to get started to feel motivated." Close quote, anecdote. A teacher once asked her students to write one terrible sentence. Not a good one, not a smart one, just one bad sentence. Once it was written, something changed. The fear was gone. Action unlocked momentum. Chapter 4, You are allowed to start small. Long introduction. We glorify big wins. But when you're empty, big goals feel cruel. When you are barely surviving, being told to dream big feels disconnected from reality. So here is a gentler truth. You are allowed to start small. So small it almost feels insignificant. Because small steps don't require motivation. They require honesty. Citation, open quote, little by little, a little becomes a lot. Tanzanian proverb. Close quote, anecdote. A therapist once told a deeply depressed patient, just make your bed. That was the entire plan. One small action became proof. I can still do something. Chapter 5. The Myth of Constant Passion. Long introduction. We admire people who look passionate every day, but what we don't see is the fatigue behind consistency. Passion fades, energy fades, excitement fades. What keeps people moving forward is not passion. It's commitment on days that feel empty. Citation, open quote, discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. Abraham Lincoln, close quote, anecdote. A musician once admitted that some days he hated his instrument, but he played anyway, not because he loved it every day, but because he trusted the process. Chapter 6, Rest is not quitting. Long introduction. In a world that glorifies productivity, rest feels like failure. We feel guilty for stopping, ashamed for slowing down. But exhaustion is not ambition. Rest is not the opposite of progress. It is part of it. Citation, open quote, almost everything will work again if you unplug it, including you. Anne Lamott, close quote, anecdote. A woodcutter once worked non-stop. When asked why he didn't sharpen his axe, he said, I don't have time. But exhaustion made him slower, not stronger. Chapter 7. Emptiness means you gave a lot. Long introduction. Emptiness doesn't come from nothing. It comes from caring deeply, from giving without measuring, from hoping again and again. If you feel empty, it's because something inside you mattered. Citation. Open quote, you feel empty because you gave too much of yourself, quote. Anecdote. A candle gives light without asking, but if you don't protect the flame, it burns out. Giving is beautiful until it becomes self-erasure. Chapter 8. Motivation can be gentle. Long introduction. Motivation doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. It says, rest, ask for help, stay. Gentle motivation is still motivation. Citation. Open quote, you don't have to be positive all the time. Lori Deschain, close quote, anecdote. A child learning to walk falls repeatedly. No one calls the child weak. Why do we judge ourselves so harshly? Chapter 9. You are not late in lifelong introduction. Comparison silently kills motivation. You look at others and think you're behind. But life has no universal schedule. Your timing is not wrong, it's personal. Citation. Open quote, comparison is the thief of joy. Theodore Roosevelt, close quote, anecdote. Some people bloom late and still beautifully. Different timelines do not mean failure. Chapter 10. One day, this will make sense. Long introduction. Right now, your struggle may feel pointless, but pain often carries meaning we understand only later. This chapter is shaping depth. Citation, open quote, your story will one day be someone else's survival guide. Close quote, anecdote. Many people later realize their hardest years built their strength. Nothing is wasted. Chapter 11, a promise to yourself. Long introduction. When everything feels uncertain, one thing must remain solid, your commitment to yourself, not to success, but to survival. Citation, open quote, when you feel like quitting, remember why you started. Close quote, anecdote, not the dream, but the desire to live honestly. Closing, you are still here, and that means the story is not over. Ladies and gentlemen, if you remember nothing else from today, remember this. There was never something wrong with you. You were not lazy. You were not ungrateful. You were not weak. You were tired. And tired people don't need judgment. They need rest. They need kindness. They need time. Motivation does not disappear to punish us. It disappears to protect us. It tells us something needs to change. Something needs care. Something inside you is asking to be heard. And maybe today, for the first time in a long time, you listened. You didn't fix everything. You didn't solve your whole life, but you stayed present. And that matters more than you think. One day, not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day you will look back at this version of yourself with gratitude. You will say, thank you for not giving up. Thank you for staying when it was hard. Thank you for surviving. Until that day comes, be gentle with yourself. Lower the pressure, shorten the distance. Take smaller steps. You don't need to see the whole path. You just need enough light for the next step. And if all you can do today is breathe, listen, and remain, that is not failure. That is courage. You are still here. And as long as you are here, there is still hope, quiet, patient, waiting for you. Thank you.